This is Prisma Lopez-Marin here on 18 WJTS. We're having a conversations on Monday here with our town manager from Ferdinand, Chris James. How are you?
I'm doing well, Prisma. How are you?
I'm always great when we visit here in Ferdinand. It's very, very welcoming here. There's a couple of things that did happen. Of course, last weekend. I believe it was last weekend.
Weekend before last.
The weekend
Yes.
before last, we did have the High Mat Fest here, and I believe it was a great event. There was great performers as well as community involvement, which is very key here.
It worked out. The weather had not been very pleasant temperature-wise leading up to the fest, but that weekend Mother Nature was kind. It was dry and more moderate temperature-wise. It wasn't as baking hot as it had been, and it wasn't wet like we had for a good chunk of our 175th celebration last year, so that was a positive. Had a great turnout again. They kind of reconnoitered some of the stage area, beer garden, a little bit of a different layout, and that took, I think, a little bit of getting used to for folks. It was spaced in a way. We had a very good crowd, but because we had a bigger area to work with, it didn't seem as busy, at least on Friday night. Saturday night, it was a packed house. Throughout the afternoon and evening was very solid attendance for the Hunter Smith Band show that night and just all of the activities that evening. So all in all, it was another very solid success for Heimat Fest, and they'll take a little breather, recharge their batteries, and start planning for next year.
Wow, that is very intense and very, very well, organized, as well as trying to get back on planning for the next year.
Yes, it's not something that you can just sort of put together in the spring leading into it. It is the same with Folk Festival and most of the major events, not just in Ferdinand but throughout the county, Strassenfest or Erbsfest. Those aren't just whip it up quick type of processes. It's almost a year-long plan. You have to figure out your starting point. What are you going to do for entertainment? How you need to take care of all of the ABCs of it, all the behind-the-scenes things, fundraisers, donations, all of the raffle prizes, getting your volunteers to help work the different booths, and all of that process. It's something that is months long in preparing for, and then once you have your core group, then you sit down and really start nailing down the finer points of the actual event. Make sure, okay, how much are we spending on entertainment? Who can we get for that? Can we get somebody? Figure out all of the different aspects of it to come up with the best mix possible. Music that will appeal to everyone. Still have other events and activities for the kids and for the folks who maybe aren't into the music, but they want to still come down and take part in it, have different food options. I know they sold out on some of the meals served within about an hour and 15 minutes. They went through 200 meals. And I had spoke with some people last week who came into town. They got there a little bit too late to get that meal, so they had to go to one of the other food booths and get food that way. But so all in all, it was a very solid success for the Heimat Fest. Neil Wire, Sue Fink did a masterful job. Sue's been doing a lot of this work for many years. She was huge during our 175th process as well. Neil came on board as a younger person for the 175th and really took a liking to it. It suited him. And so once the town kind of pulled back from the 175th activities and it went back to what we call a regular Heimat Fest, Neil was there to step in and kind of take the helm of things with Sue right there to guide him and make sure all the I's were dotted and T's were crossed. And he's going to do a fine job for us for many years to come. We've got that youth factor. He's able to reach out to a lot of the folks his age, that 20 and 30-something crowd that we can rely on for many years and not have to trot out some of the older veterans. I mean, it's great to reach out to them, get some advice. How would you do this or how did you handle that? But try to transition it into the younger folks, because the older committee members, they've done it, and they're kind of getting tired and wanting to step back and just enjoy it. And we're starting to see that transition with the Heimat Fest, and we're working on that for other things as well to get that younger demographic into the mix and be able to keep fresh ideas and solid energy going and keep this moving forward for many years to come.
And that's very important to do as a community. It's very important to get our generations to be involved, especially I realized that for the Heimat Fest, they did do teen ambassadors. Can you let us know more about that, or mainly why it's important to be involved in that capacity, but as well as just in general, being able to be involved in community service?
Well, the Teen Ambassador program, that was something brand new. In years past, for more than a decade, they had a Little Miss and Mister and a Queen's pageant. Depending on the year, you either did it all together or you'd break it into two separate groups. This past year, they didn't. They kind of went on hiatus with the pageant, but the Teen Ambassador program, that kind of filled that void, and it has a chance to hit a group of younger people that the pageant doesn't really touch on. For the pageant, you had the young ladies, nothing really for the guys, and then the Little Miss and Misters for the youth. There was sort of a gap in there for that older junior, senior high school student, male or female, who may want to be involved in the community, either because they're an Eagle Scout or they're through National Honor Society at school or something of that nature. And this was a chance to let them shine. And they had, it was eligible juniors and seniors at Forest Park High School. I'm not sure what the final number of participants were, but they came up with some great young people. Luke Steffi was named the Teen Ambassador. Luke's dad is the head of the Tri-County YMCA, Mike Steffi. Luke's also, as student council president, he's the junior member of our Chamber of Commerce board. And so he's been involved in a lot of capacities behind the scenes, and this was a chance for he and his classmates to kind of have the spotlight on them and talk about why they want to be a part of not just the Heimat Fest, but events in Ferdinand in general. And it's good to get to them when they're at that age, before they've gone off to college. So much of the talk is about brain drain. You'll graduate, you're good kids, they go to college, and then they move away, and then the process is trying to bring them back. And this is a chance to find out through this ambassador program why they want to be involved or what they thought was vital for them to be a part of it. And that allows not just the Heimat Fest, but other groups in the community to sort of take some of those threads and build on them and try to come up with other programs that are beneficial for the younger people as they move from high school into college, and maybe make it an easier transition for them to come immediately back home as opposed to graduate college, move away, explore a little bit, and then come back. Try to have them do some of that exploration here locally and keep them around and start that process of getting the next generation or generations involved with Heimat Fest and Folk Festival and the Chris Kindlemart and the other activities that we have in town to try to keep that transition flowing smoothly without having too big of a gap from one group to the next group. Try to fill in the blanks and keep things moving along.
And are there any outreach or capacities besides the Teen Ambassador where college students do end up coming back as they're in college or anything like that, who are from Ferdinand, who come back and help the fellow high school students?
I don't know of a specific program. I know through summertime, a lot of the college-age kids, they'll come back and they work at the YMCA as summer help, either as volunteer or paid labor. I know there's some student-aged employees up at the Ferdinand Library, and Kiwanis Club, they're always involved in trying to find projects and activities for that age to kind of to take part in and keep them invested in the community and not have them get the feeling that, well, I've graduated high school, there's nothing here for me.
Yes.
Try to keep them moving forward, create some new ideas, and they may have an idea, why can't we do this, or have we thought about doing that? And it may not be an activity that group can do, but it can be built on by another department or another organization and build it from scratch. And they're invested in that from the beginning, and they're able to sort of shepherd it through. They can step away, and that next young group can step in and fill the void and just continue the process moving forward.
And I definitely could see that for the Heimat Fest. Many probably did come back specifically for the Heimat Fest because it's such a great thing that they remember growing up and being involved in.
That's our hope, is to give them positive reasons to come back. so much of the time you hear the younger generation, they say, there's nothing for me to do here. So we're trying to come up with activities and events that will bring them back. And not just them, but if they've moved away, whether it's for college or a job, that they can tell their new friends at these other places, won't you come to Ferdinand and take advantage of Heimat Fest or the Folk Festival, Chris Kindlemart, whatever the activity may be. Come back and see where I grew up. They can then have that community pride that here's where I grew up and all of the great things about Ferdinand, and then the events as well, and maybe even pinch some of those people to move into the area, depending on what their career is going to be. There's a lot of great job opportunities here locally. Bring some of that young talent back into the area where they can kind of set their own roots, grow their own family, and say, this is my home now. So we're always looking for that opportunity.
And that's what's so great about Ferdinand, that it's very welcoming and very receptive of new ideas and the new growing community.
Well, we try to be as progressive as possible. Change doesn't necessarily happen overnight, and a great idea that you may have now may not bear fruit for 3 or 4 years.
Right.
Sometimes there's an immediate turnaround depending on what it is, but we're always looking for that new idea or a way to engage the youth or engage a particular segment of the population to be more involved. We've seen that in recent years. The sisters up at the monastery, they're looking at ways, how can we be more part of the community? They've been very eager to come down the hill, as it were, and be part of the community. And they've been able to come up with different programs and events where there's been a good blending. And so now we're trying to take it from the youth standpoint and get them involved where they don't feel like, well, when I'm graduated, there's nothing for me here. We want to get them to invest in Ferdinand long term, get them involved while they're still in school, be it late high school or college years, get some of their life experience, and then be able to come back and pick right back up. And they say, oh, I remember that program.
Yes.
And then they can encourage others of their age. And then as they grow and have their families grow, then they can have their kids become a part of it and just continue that process forward.
It's definitely a progressive cycle, and to bring that about in different generations. So we are, thank you for speaking to us about the generations here in Ferdinand and the work that is yet to be done and is continuing as we speak.
It is, and always encourage folks, if they have an idea, whatever it may be, contact me, call Town Hall, and find out who do I need to talk to about whatever this idea is for a project or an event or an activity. It'll get routed to the appropriate person or persons, and then they can kind of take leadership of it from there and try to develop that idea, move it forward, and turn it into something viable and sustaining.
Well, that sounds very wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us here on our Monday Conversations.
Thank you, Prisma.
This has been Prisma Lopez-Marin here on 18 WJTS.